Hello everyone, welcome to Daily PYQ series which has been initiated by the IS Baba. Right? In this particular series, I am going to discuss the polity question in a theme-wise manner so that it is easy for you to remember that from what basically part, what question can be framed by the UPSC examiner so that you don't miss a single mark if the question is coming from polity especially. Right? So we'll be solving all the PYQs of the polity part in a theme-wise manner. And for today, the topic is terms and terminology, right? So before starting this particular discussion of the PYQ, it's my recommendation to you people that please start reading the political theory book of the NCERT. That political ideology or political theory book of NCERT will give you insight on various terms from where the UPSC is asking question again and again. So it's my recommendation that along with solving all the PYQs, along with reading the standard book, in case you want to understand all the political theory in detail, it's my recommendation that you people please go and refer to the NCERT book of the political theories. So the first question for today is that it was asked in 2023. Which one of the following statement best reflect the chief purpose of the constitution of country? Basically, in this question, the UPSC is trying to ask you people that if the constitution has been framed by the constitution maker, what would have been the, idea or the chief purpose, behind the constitution of India? Let's try to understand each statement one by one. It determines the objective for making the necessary laws. Is the constitution only talking about that what should be the objective of, for making the necessary law? So we cannot see that the constitution in itself, it is a wider perspective. But this particular statement, it is only talking about that the objective for making of the necessary law. But constitution is going one step ahead and talking about number of the things. Right? So this statement is incorrect. So second statement is reading like, it enables the creation of political offices and government. Is the constitution only talking about political offices and the government in India? What should be the system of government in India? The answer is no. Constitution is talking about the philosophy. The constitution is talking about the fundamental rights which are to be enjoyed by me and you people. Right? Again, this particular statement is very narrow in approach. So again, we cannot say that this is the correct answer. Right? C statement is saying that it defines and limits the power of the government. So can we say that C statement is correct? Yes, this particular statement is correct because it is defining the and limiting the powers of the government. So in order to better understand this particular statement, basically the constitution was written by constitution makers, right? And constitution makers were given the responsibility by the citizen. Citizen trusted the constitution makers in order to create the Constitution of India, which is talking about the creation of state as well, right? Citizen entrusted upon the constitution maker that we want to create a state and we want to create a constitution for us, for which or through which we would be better regulated, right? Now the question that came in front of the constitution makers, that if we are going to select certain number of people in the state, right? We are giving the power to the state to regulate the citizen of India. But what if these certain people who are the state, who are sitting in the power, they become arbitrary, they become corrupt, they become authoritarian, right? What if the people who are sitting in power, those who are making the state, those who are regulating us, they become arbitrary, corrupt or authoritarian in nature? What we would be doing at that particular time? So at this moment, the constitution makers thought that we will be making a law of the land, a supreme law called as constitution, which is not only talking about the creation of state, but will also be talking about what are the limitations upon the state. So that if anyone who's coming to the power, who wants to regulate the citizen of India, right, there should be certain limitation upon them. So the Constitution of India is basically talking about the creation of state and how the state powers can be limited, can be restricted, so that the state does not become arbitrary, corrupt and authoritarian. Right? So we can say that the third option, that it defines and limits the power of the government, is truly correct. Why so? Because Constitution of India is not only talking about the making of necessary law. It is not only talking about creation of political offices, but it is talking about the limiting powers of the state, so that in future it never becomes corrupt in nature. It never becomes arbitrary decision making. Is it clear? So the C is the correct answer. Let's read the fourth statement. It secures social justice, social equality and social security. This particular statement independent itself is correct. But basically this statement is having no relationship with the Constitution. Why so? Because it is talking about one of the part of the Indian Constitution, that is directive principle of state policy. This is one of the feature of the Constitution, but not the chief purpose for the creation of the state. The chief purpose for the creation of the state is to limit the powers of the state, limit the power of the people who are making the state, right? So that in future they never become corrupt in nature. Now in 2021, the question again was asked from the similar lines that constitutional government means a representative government of nation with federal structure? No. A government whose head enjoy nominal power? No. A government whose head enjoy real power, or a government limited by the terms of the Constitution? Again, I explained you the concept behind the chief purpose for the creation of the state. So, constitutional government in itself, the answer should be fourth statement, that a government limited by the terms of the Constitution. Why the first statement is incorrect? A representative government of a nation with federal structure. It is basically talking about one of the type of the government. It is not talking about the constitutional government. A government whose head enjoy nominal power. Basically, it is talking about republican form of government, not the constitutional government. A government whose head enjoy real powers. This particular statement is basically talking about presidential system. In India, we are having parliamentary form of democracy. In presidential system, the president or a government who heads enjoy the real power. Is it clear? Now in 2021, the question is asked from Liberty. Question read like, which one of the following factor constitute the best safeguard of liberty in liberal democracy? Which of the factor safeguard the liberty in a liberal democracy? Liberty in itself, I hope you understand the meaning. Liberty means freedom, right? Freedom means to be free. Restrictions that are being imposed on the freedom, it should not be arbitrary. Liberty, if we want to define it, it is called as freedom but with certain restriction. But please remember that those certain restrictions which are imposed by the state, it should not be arbitrary in nature. That is why whenever we are reading the fundamental rights, there is a list of things which have been provided, for example, under Article 19, that the state can impose restriction on certain ground, but state cannot impose restriction on your full freedom. So freedom in itself, it is a negative concept, because basically this particular word is talking about to free or to be free. If everyone is free in the society, it would lead to chaos or it would lead to destruction in the society. So in order to enjoy the freedom of oneself and the freedom of society, you need certain restriction so that state could regulate your freedom and everyone would be able to enjoy the freedom which is given by the constitution. But you need to remember that state can impose certain restriction, but these restrictions should not in itself should be arbitrary. Is it clear? So this is the meaning of liberty, which means freedom with constraint. But those constraints in itself should not be arbitrary. Now let's come to the question. A committed judiciary. See, this particular word, a committed judiciary, in itself is negative. Committed judiciary means a judiciary which is, having a relationship with the executive, or they are maintaining good relationship with the executive, or they are committed to the executive rather than to the justice, rather than to the citizen of India. So committed judiciary in itself is a negative term, and liberty can never be ensured whenever the judiciary and executive are working together. Is it clear? So this particular option is incorrect. Next is centralization of power. If all the powers in India are with the central government, how the liberty will be ensured? In order to ensure the liberty of citizen, you need to give certain power to the state government. You need to give certain power to the local government, so that these particular smaller federal units would be better able to understand the issues and challenges of the citizen, and they would be providing certain solution to the citizen. So whenever there is centralization of power, generally no liberty exists in such a country or in such a system. So again, B is incorrect. Now let's come to C and D. For example, C is talking about elected government, and separation of powers is basically giving us the idea of liberty. How liberty can be ensured? If judiciary and executive are working in their separate domain. Both these organs of the state, they are working in an impartial way, in a neutral way. Then only liberty can exist in any system. So the correct answer is separation of power. Elected government in itself is not having any relationship with this particular question. It is just given to confuse you people, right? Elected government means the government which is accountable to the citizen of a particular area, right, of a particular state. So elected government again is not the answer. Whenever all the organs of the state would be working in their particular area, then only you can say that liberty can be ensured. If they are trying to interfere or if they are trying to become partial, right? So in that particular system, liberty cannot exist. So the answer is separation of power.